It is January 8, 2014 on Wednesday. It's 9:38 p.m. Pacific Time. And up next, this is your Fukushima radiation report from E&E News. Let's begin with the first report. Radiation expert says it's terrifying how Pacific ecosystem has collapsed since Fukushima. Plutonium and uranium suspected of spreading through food chain. This is a video. It was published January 8, 2014 at 9:15 a.m. Eastern Time by E&E News. Interview with Dr. Christopher Busby, January 7, 2014. And you can read all about Dr. Busby's credentials right there and his background. Let's start with the report. Part 1 at 5:30 in. It's very hard to imagine how there could be a 5-fold increase in natural background radiation from the sort of material that's coming from Fukushima. It's just too far away. What I have noticed, and this is actually terrifying, is that since Fukushima there has been an increasing collapse in the entire Pacific ecosystem. This is not something which one can just poo-poo or write off. In my mind, that is actually the scariest outcome for all of this, because I don't think we can write off any of that. All those other measurements of radioactivity in Missouri and in the snow, and all the rest of it, could in principle be because more people are looking. At 9 o'clock in, as far as the Pacific is concerned, I think that is real. We've got a population collapse all across the Pacific. My colleague, Alexei Yabakov, who's a population biologist, I was with him in Moscow recently talking about this issue. The problem is you can tip an entire ecological system over the edge. It's absolutely terrifying because so many people depend on the Pacific for their food supply. Fukushima is a lot of uranium and a lot of plutonium, of course. That was converted as a result of the explosions into small particles, into these nanoparticles. We know that this is the case because we've measured them in car filters and in people's shoes and so on. The basis of the sea life, the plankton, everything depends on it. The particles would get into the larger animals and it would go up the food chain and bioaccumulate as hot particles. This would really explain the collapse. It would also explain the genetic effects in the higher mammals. Part 2 at 2:30 in. I don't know if this is the answer, but the point is something is happening there. There's no doubt about it. The very important paper, the one that really did it for me, they've been measuring the amount of dead creatures that reached the seabed. After Fukushima, the amount of dead sea creatures that reached the bottom suddenly accelerated up to an enormously high level. I think it must be that the uranium coming out in the form of nanoparticles spreading into the ocean and then being carried by the plankton. It's getting into some of these microorganisms in the ocean and going up the food chain. But what certainly we can see is the effects of something. We can certainly see the collapse of the Pacific biota, the collapse of the Pacific ecosystem, and that is truly terrifying. And you can watch part 1 of the interview here and watch part 2 right here if you wish. And you can also see this report or this report. And let's go to the next article. Just a moment. New Journal article says Fukushima may have already released 90 quadrillion becquerels of cesium-137, much more than Chernobyl's 70 quadrillion becquerels. That was published January 8, 2014 at 3:48 p.m. Eastern Time by E&E News. Early online release, Fukushima and Ocean Radioactivity, Ken O. Bucellaire, Journal of the Oceanography Society, January 5, 2014. The earthquake, tsunami, and subsequent radiation releases from Japan's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant were unprecedented events for the ocean and society. Total releases of cesium-137 from Fukushima are not well constrained, with estimates from atmospheric fallout and direct ocean discharge spanning 4 to 90 petabecquerels, but are most likely in the 15 to 30 petabecquerel range. Cesium concentrations in benthic fish stay elevated over predictions, and Fukushima-tagged surface waters will reach the U.S. West Coast in the range of 2 to 4 years. To determine which model predictions are more accurate would require more extensive vertical sampling across the Pacific than is currently available. Some information will be forthcoming from analysis underway in Japan and the United States, and monitoring of coastal activities along the United States in the aftermath of Fukushima. After years of relative complacency, the public and policymakers have renewed concerns about radioactive contamination. In this new article, Bucelaire states the total cesium-137 released from Chernobyl is 100 petabecquerels, though just a few months ago he used 85 petabecquerels as the total. The United Nations' original estimate of 85 petabecquerels was later revised to 70 petabecquerels when more accurate data became available. Using the 100 petabecquerel total for Chernobyl, instead of 85 petabecquerel or even the UN's 70 petabecquerels, removes the possibility of the reader being left with the impression that the Fukushima disaster up to 90 petabecquerels may be the worst nuclear plant release in history. During a recent presentation to the nuclear-related departments of the U.S. government at the Intra-Agency Steering Committee on Radiation Standards, Bucelaire appears to be proud of his ability to get media outlets to print his quotes that downplay the releases from the Fukushima plant. From slide 15, and this is one of the slides, Public Interest, Concern, and Anxiety. It says, National Geographic, August 7, 2013, Fukushima's radioactive water leak, what you should know. It's actually thousands of times less than in the immediate aftermath of the disaster, according to Bucelaire. NBC Nightly News, ABC World News, Weather Channel, PRI The World, NPR, AP Tokyo, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN, Science, New Scientist, Livewire, Douche Well, Anchorage Daily News, Canadian Broadcasting, NHK Japan, and Surfer Magazine. See all the slides from Bucelaire's presentation right here. It's a PDF file. Or you can read the early release of Bucelaire's latest journal article right here. It's the full early release. All right? And that's going to do it for your Fukushima radiation report. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe. Pink out.